Senator Cynthia Lummis and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand unveiled on June 7th of this year a draft of a 69-page bill that came to be known as the Responsible Financial Innovation Act. This act aims at creating a regulatory framework for digital assets, aka cryptocurrencies. The Republican senator and the Democrat senator got together to write down this bill in hopes of starting some kind of regulations for the cryptocurrency space. It seems that it has become a necessity to do so, especially after the world of crypto and the world of many investors spiraled crazily after the Terra Luna Crash. And although some believe that the bill would only target stablecoins issues, which were mainly the cause of the crash that has cost losses in trillions of dollars, it in fact has a lot more in those 69 pages. The Lummis Gillibrand Act mainly addresses the jurisdiction of the U.S. SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as the CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and it also includes some suggestions relating to the taxes of digital assets, and of course, a few suggested stablecoins regulations, along with dictating some coordination amongst different agencies. But if you are still wondering what does that bill truly mean for investors, and how would that affect crypto fans, well then, listen up, as in today's video, I'll be explaining the bill in detail and discussing the main key points of the act that every cryptocurrency investor should be aware of. Hey guys, and welcome to Yann Invests in Crypto, and in today's video, we will see what regulations the Lummis Gillibrand Act has within its pages to understand how this could affect us. So without further ado, let us get right into it. Categorizing digital assets as either commodities or securities. The first key point that this proposed bill sets out to address is putting down some guidelines or creating a sort of standard to categorize digital assets, allowing everyone involved to determine which ones are to be considered commodities and which are to be securities. And making this difference is quite crucial because it will help determine which agency would take over regulatory authority over those virtual assets. But before I get into that, you have to know that the Act states that all digital assets need to first be analyzed in terms of their purpose, and by determining the powers and the rights this asset would provide for the consumer. And this analysis will determine if the digital asset will be classified as either a commodity or a security. This classification will help in providing all digital assets companies to undergo their regulatory obligations, and it will deliver the necessary flexibility to operate in the fast-changing crypto space. Commodity Futures Trading Commission takes over regulatory authority. The senators agreed that most of the crypto market is in fact dominated by commodities rather than securities. This is because cryptocurrencies are fungible and they are tradable assets representing an item or a product. As a result, the drafted bill gives the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, regulatory authority over the markets of digital assets. What this means is that when this act becomes law, many of the cryptocurrencies that actually have the largest market share, and that would include Bitcoin and Ether, would be defined as a commodity and fall under the ancillary assets category, and they would thus be regulated by the CFTC instead of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Definitions. In Section 9801 of Title 31 United States Code, this act also tries to provide some kind of formal definitions for a few terms that are used in the cryptocurrency space, and those include the following. Digital assets. According to the Act, the senators provided a formal definition of what a digital asset is, stating that it is, quote, a natively electronic asset, end quote, that mostly, quote, confers economic, proprietary, or access rights or powers, and is recorded using cryptographically secured distributed ledger technology, or any similar analog, end quote. And this includes, quote, virtual currency and ancillary assets, consistent with Section 2C2F of 11, the Commodity Exchange Act, as well as, quote, payment stablecoins, consistent with Section 403 of the Legal Certainty 13 for Bank Products Act of 2000, 7 U.S.C. 27A, end quote, and, quote, other securities and commodities subject to subparagraph A, end quote. Digital asset intermediary is defined within the Act as, quote, a person who holds a license, registration, or other similar authorization, end quote. And it is specified that they should be under the following: the Commodity Exchange Act and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. A digital asset intermediary can also be someone who could, quote, conduct market activities relating in digital assets, end quote, as well as stablecoins. Payment stablecoin. This is defined in the Act as a digital asset that is, quote, redeemable on demand on a one-to-one basis for instruments denominated in United States dollars and defined as legal tender, end quote. It should also be, quote, issued by a business entity, end quote, and must be, quote, accompanied by a statement from the issuer that the asset is redeemable from the issuer or another identified person, end quote, as well as, quote, backed by one or more financial assets, excluding other digital assets, end quote. And finally, a payment stablecoin should be, quote, intended to be used as a medium of exchange, end quote. Smart contract. It is stated in the Act that a smart contract is a, quote, computer code deployed to a distributed ledger technology network that executes an instruction based on the occurrence or non-occurrence of specified conditions, end quote. It can also include, quote, taking possession or control of a digital asset and transferring the asset or issuing executable instructions for these actions, end quote. Virtual currency. A virtual currency is a digital asset that is primarily used, quote, as a medium of exchange, unit of account, store of value, or any combination of such functions, end quote. The Act states that the virtual currency, quote, is not legal tender, end quote, and it, quote, does not derive value from or is backed by an underlying financial asset, except other digital assets, end quote. A virtual currency also includes a digital asset, quote, that is accompanied by a statement from the issuer that a denominated or pegged value will be maintained and be available upon redemption from the issuer or other identified person based solely on a smart contract, end quote. Stablecoins. Following the detrimental crash of Terra Luna, the Act also touches upon the issue of stablecoins and particularly aims at regulating stablecoin issuers to protect these stablecoin consumers. And for that, the Act requires that all of the payment stablecoin issuers should first have a 100% reserve. Secondly, they need to also have a detailed disclosure about the kind of assets that are backing their stablecoin. The issuers are also expected to ensure that their stablecoin holders can redeem the coins at a 1-to-1 ratio in standard legal tender. National security. The senators also contemplated the national security implications of the cryptocurrency industry as a whole. As an example, the Act references openly the digital yuan, which is China's official central bank digital currency, and states that, quote, not later than 60 days after the date of enactment of this Act, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, in consultation with the Administrator of General Services, the Director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Secretary of Defense, ellipsis, would all have to develop standards and guidelines for executive agencies which require adequate security measures for use of the digital yuan on government information technology devices, end quote. Uniform laws. The new bill dictates and requires that the regulatory supervisors, along with state banking, adopt uniform money transmitter license requirements for all transactions that involve digital assets within 2 years. Taxes. This Act has great news regarding taxes paid for cryptocurrencies, as it proposes to exclude gross income for federal income tax purposes, gains or losses from the nature of cryptocurrencies in any personal transaction when purchasing goods or services, so long as the gain or loss does not exceed $200. But this does not include any transactions other than personal ones, nor fiat currency, securities, commodities, digital assets, or cryptocurrencies, regardless if the transaction resulted in a loss or a gain. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC. Because of the many reports about the extensive energy consumption caused by some cryptocurrency mining activities, the Act requires that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission analyzes and reports on the energy consumption resulting from any digital asset activity. The FERC will have to determine an optimal solution for this issue concerning mining so that the U.S. would be able to meet its clean energy and climate goals. Who does this Act apply to? So who is concerned with the Senator's bill? Well, many, if not all, participants in the cryptocurrency industry. Everything stated in the bill applies to businesses, corporations, cryptocurrency brokers, and every kind of entity with a license, which is issued by a governmental body, allowing them to make transactions with which they get to use, transfer, or issue a smart contract, a digital asset, or anything crypto-related. And so, the Act specifically applies to cryptocurrency exchanges, such as Binance or Kraken, all decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, all users of digital assets, as well as all DeFi or decentralized finance protocols. However, the language used in the bill infers that both DeFi protocols and DAOs could be excluded in the beginning because it is stated within the bill that this act is applicable to entities or persons that are, quote, required by law to hold such a license, registration, or similar authorization, end quote. So to sum this all up in a few words, the purpose of this newly introduced bill is to provide a sort of regulatory framework for the cryptocurrency space. The Act strives to categorize digital assets as per their purpose, with most of them being under the regulatory authority of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And any digital assets that are considered securities wouldn't be considered digital assets in the first place, and would instead be under the authority of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, the question remains, if this bill becomes law, will this act help in pushing more people to invest in crypto? Or could the whole industry become too regulated for investors to remain investing? I would love to hear your thoughts now that you've had an overview of the Financial Innovation Act. So share with me in the comments down below if you are excited about the new bill and why, and let us know if you do not like where this is going and why you don't. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to always get the latest cryptocurrency news and never miss similar content such as this one. And I will be seeing you soon in the next one.